Okay, here we are with discipline 7B. We're going to add a kind of alternate track to this seventh discipline for those of you who have already done 7A, because doing the statement of accountability is a really important thing to do. But once we've done kind of a big thing a few times, we want to do something a little more subtle. So you should now have been able to identify who are your five most significant relationships. Who are the people that you have the strongest feelings about? Who do you have the spend the most time with? And whose decisions have the biggest impact on you? And in each of those five most significant relationships, you will have been able to identify at least one pattern of conflict. Conflict doesn't mean a time when you fight, just there are places when you kind of see things differently or there's something that needs to be worked out. One of the things you may discover is that in some relationships, you don't notice yourselves having a conflict because you're so good at dealing with it that it's just like, oh yeah, no, we know how to deal with this. It's worth noting, hey, we're really good at this, so give yourself a pat on the back. But it's not that there wasn't a conflict, it's that the conflict did not erupt in a fight or any, yeah, there were no hard feelings or anything. We just, we know how to work this one out. So notice those as well. You will not have a significant relationship with someone and not have conflicts with them. But if you're really good at it, be sure to notice that. Okay, so you've got most significant relationships, and at least one persistent pattern of conflict in each of these. And the conflicts are evidence that there's something that happens that's a kind of a glitch. This system that is the relationship that we've been able to structure with each other. There's ways in which we get sideways. That's going to happen. Notice the glitches, because that's the place where we have the greatest opportunity for transformation. This is the point at which we say, oh, ouch, this isn't working for me. How do we deal with that when that shows up for us? Now, in all of these relationships, there are going to be times when, in all five of these most significant relationships, there are going to be times when it feels like a mutual relationship, hopefully. There are going to be reciprocal aspects of it where we kind of have agreed who's going to take care of which part of the decision making. There may even be times when we have a fiduciary relationship, when we're, in some sense, taking care of each other. What we're looking to do here is to maximize the amount of time that we spend and the ability of the relationship to, in fact, be deeply mutual. Mutuality is the goal here, because mutual relationships have the capacity to sustain deeper levels of intimacy. But the glitches, as they arise, are going to arise because, in some sense, we get triggered. A kind of emotional response, typically an emotional response that has a behavior associated with it, and the emotion and the behavior are, in some sense, bigger than the event that just happened. Because what's got triggered was something reminiscent of some past event. It's like, oh, here's this one again. It may be past events in this relationship. It may be past events that go all the way back into very early in our lives. The capacity for the relationship to sustain itself when we get triggered is great, because that's where we experience healing. So we're going to look for these triggers and discover ways that we can be ever more mutual in the context of our relationship with the other, because that's where the healing happens. And we're going to be more and more accountable. Now, accountability here, remember, accountability is the capacity to be able to take into account how it is that the other affects us, how it is that we affect them. I get to decide whether or not I'm going to be accountable in the relationship. I don't get to decide whether the other person is going to be accountable. The other person may say, no, I'm not interested in that. That's not something I desire in this relationship. And so, like any other kind of quality that we may desire in a relationship, we can't create it by ourselves. So we're going to look for other relationships in which we can create that. Nevertheless, we have to be able to create the quality for ourselves to experience it. So in the context of these relationships, we're gonna create a healthy relationship by being more and more accountable. And in the 5 most significant relationships where there's a persistent pattern of conflict, what we're looking for is our pattern. Because some aspect of this glitch, this ouch, this being triggered, this recapitulation of some old wound, there's something about this that is what we are bringing into it. So what is it that I'm doing? It may not arise for me as a choice that I'm making. This differentiates this from 7A. This is 7B. Now we're looking at the things that we do persistently, but we don't really even see them as a choice. It's just who we are. It's just how we show up. But it may well be something that we have the power to address. So what are the patterns that I experience in my relationships with others such that they happen to me over and over again, or that I am creating over and over again? Because they're not just things that they're not just things that other people do to me. They're things that arise within the context of the relationship I form with them, and I am one of the people who's constructing that. And when it happens in multiple relationships, there's a very high likelihood that it's something I am doing. This is what I'm bringing to it. Now, why would I want to know what it is that I'm doing? Because the things I'm doing, the choices I'm making, are the ones over which I have the most control. If I change how I show up, I'm going to change the relationship, ideally in a way that creates more mutuality. We're making decisions more and more with shared responsibility and rights, and more accountable in that we do a better and better job of taking into account how it is that we impact each other. All right? So good luck with this one, and thanks for joining me on this journey.